From Dallas and Fort Worth, this is CBS 11 News at 10. The ones for Texas.
End of the Romo era. North Texas getting ready to say goodbye to the longtime Cowboys quarterback.
The big question now, where will he land next?
Our sports director, Bill Jones, spent the day over at Cowboys headquarters in Frisco. I know you're working your sources, so where do things stand as we know tonight?
Well, it's very interesting. It's going to be very interesting the next 24 hours. After 14 seasons in Dallas, Tony Romo will begin his search for a new team tomorrow. That's when Jerry Jones will release him from his Cowboys contract, allowing Romo to become a free agent on the first day of the NFL's new year.
If you think for a second that I don't want to be out there, then you've probably never felt the pure ecstasy of competing and winning. That hasn't left me. In fact, it may burn more now than ever.
Romo has been burned by injuries, playing only 5 games the last 2 seasons. Could that have him contemplating retirement?
I would imagine that he'll continue to play. I just can't imagine a guy who's done as much as he has and is as competitive as he is not wanting to play.
Cowboys fans are having a hard time imagining Romo not wearing the silver and blue. So where will he wind up?
Denver and Houston are 2 obvious places.
Both the Texans and Broncos are believed to be a quarterback away from being a Super Bowl contender. Houston owner Bob McNair recently sang Romo's praises.
Yeah, I like Tony. I think, he's been a great performer, and I still remember the last time we were up there, and Romo whirled around and beat us. So, yeah, I know Romo.
Romo would seem like a natural fit in Denver, working with Broncos general manager John Elway.
We're open to anything, so, we'll always look at it.
Denver and Houston are the favorites. That doesn't mean it's a lock that Romo will end up with either one of those teams, though.
My experience tells me to watch out for a dark horse. If it was a surprise team, that shouldn't be a surprise.
That's what the voice of the Cowboys thinks. So what are they saying in Denver tonight? Let's bring in Michael Spencer, sports anchor at KCNC, CBS Denver. What do you think, Michael? Do you think the Broncos want Tony Romo?
Well, Bill, there are differing reports on that. I think the Broncos are certainly going to kick the tires, as John Elway would say, and why not? Obviously, they had success when they did it with Peyton Manning, so there is the reminiscence factor of bringing in a veteran quarterback. It works so well. Broncos won Super Bowl 50. I think the Broncos are going to do their due diligence here. I do think Romo's health is going to be a factor, and I think that will maybe be the biggest factor because the Broncos' offensive line, simply put, wasn't very good this year. They know they need to improve there, and if you're sticking a guy who's not very durable in Tony Romo behind that offensive line, you start to wonder if that's a good combination.
Interestingly enough, we saw Romo and Broncos GM John Elway together at one of the inauguration parties in D.C. in late January. How do you think Broncos fans would react if Elway signed Romo?
Well, I think the overwhelming majority of fans want Romo to become a Bronco. At least that's the feeling here in Denver, because I think they look back on what Peyton Manning was able to do for this franchise and think that Romo will be able to do the same. Now, obviously, I don't know that Tony Romo is Peyton Manning. I think there are many more factors that go into that. But the feeling here is that if Romo becomes a Bronco, it's a win-win.
All right, thanks, Michael Spencer, KCNC in Denver. And Doug, by the way, the Cowboys do play at Denver this coming season.
There's
How great would that be?
Let's talk about the money side of things. Cowboys got a ton of money wrapped up in Tony Romo, obviously. So where do things stand as far as where we go from here on the financial side for the home team?
If it's a straight release tomorrow, Romo would count $19 million against the salary cap this year. They'd free up $5 million to spend now. But the Cowboys could designate Romo a June 1st cut. What that means is they would lessen the cap impact this year, spread it over 2 years. He would count only $10.7 million against the cap this year. Cowboys would save $14 million, which they can spend this year. However, they won't have that money to spend until after June 1st, and Romo's salary cap hit next year would be over $8 million. So that's the decision they have to make, and they probably already made it.
Yeah. All right, Bill Jones, thanks for being inside for us. Appreciate it.
Much more coming up.
All right, Kaylee?
All right, well, there are several questions about the future for Tony Romo and, of course, the Dallas Cowboys. To get some answers, our J.D. Miles spent some time tonight with sports management experts. What are they saying, J.D.?
Kaylee, local sports agents tonight tell me that what's happening between the Cowboys and Tony Romo, they're comparing it to a divorce. And starting tomorrow, Romo will be single and ready to mingle with any NFL team he desires. With more than 400 clients, including several Dallas Cowboys, Jordan Woy is DFW's premier sports agent. He doesn't represent Tony Romo, but he knows what's going through the NFL quarterback's mind.
It's an exhilarating time. It's an opportunity for him to go out and find a new home, find a new team.
Woy says Romo, the free agent, will quickly determine which teams are interested before they commit available money to other players.
He'll take trips in to visit with those teams. He'll meet the coaches, the offensive coordinators, the quarterback coach, general managers, owners. They'll explain to him what his role would be.
Some fans will question why the Cowboys didn't trade Romo, but Ed Butowski, who was a financial manager for several high-profile athletes, believes the Cowboys likely tried to trade him.
I expected him to be traded. I was actually shocked that he wasn't traded, but that also tells you that maybe somebody in the marketplace just didn't want him.
Romo will be 37 when the season starts and has a well-documented history of injuries. NFL agents like Jordan Woy say any team that signs him will certainly base his salary on how much he is able to stay on the field.
So I think there will be interest in him, but there'll probably be some protections built in.
Woy says the Cowboys did Romo a favor by releasing him at the start of free agency tomorrow. They could have kept him until June 1st and still tried to pursue a trade, but by then he says that other teams would have committed most of their money to signing other players, free agents. Live in Dallas, J.D. Miles, CBS 11 News.
JD, thanks. Romo talk everywhere tonight. Dallas Stars, for instance, hitting the ice tonight. But even as hockey fans were walking in, they were talking football, Romo, and his likely departure. Jeff Paul continuing.
Is this a big deal to you?
No. Well, we are more Stars fans.
He needs to go in someplace where he can play.
I love Tony Romo. He's been around for years, so I'm sad to see him go.
I'm a Green Bay fan. Not really been impressed by his performances in the past.
As a Chicago Bears fan, how do you feel about the Cowboys parting ways with Tony Romo?
You know what? I would love the opportunity to sign Tony Romo.
Jeff Paul continuing our live team coverage tonight. Reaction from someone who knows Romo beyond the guy we all see on the field. Jeff's live for us tonight in Arlington.
Yeah, Doug, we likely won't see Tony Romo here at AT&T Stadium anymore, not at least as a Cowboy. We spoke with one of his friends tonight who says, while we're all in a rush to figure out what's next for number 9, he says Romo has plenty of time and plenty of options.
On the eve of Tony Romo being released.
It's big news, and it's their job to talk about it. But for Ben Rogers of 105.3 The Fan, Romo's release is personal.
It's kind of cruel. It's bizarre the way that it's ended up finishing.
Quarterback to most of us. To Rogers, Romo is a friend.
I'm sad. The idea of Tony Romo not being a Cowboy is shocking.
Sources say the Cowboys are parting ways with number 9 on Thursday, opening up the door for Romo to head elsewhere.
He's laying low right now in terms of what he's going to do. I get the feeling that he hasn't decided.
Rogers says he expects Romo to meet with Denver and then Houston.
Seeing him in another uniform, that would be unbelievably awkward.
He says Romo could also just say enough and retire, or maybe try his hand at another sport like golf, or even use his voice in the broadcast booth. While we won't likely see Romo on the field in blue, silver, and white, Rogers says Romo isn't moving.
This is a guy that wants to live in Dallas forever. He's made over $100 million. He could live anywhere he'd like to. He loves it here.
Whatever Romo decides to do, Rogers says he's betting on him as a fan and as a friend to win.
I'm sure that's burning in him. I mean, the desire to compete and show everyone, hey, you were wrong. I still got it.
Now, Rogers says don't expect a decision from Tony Romo anytime soon. He says that if Romo decides to play for another team, he might wait until well after camp to join that team. Reporting live here at Arlington, I'm Jeff Paul, CBS 11 News.
All right, Jeff, thank you so much. And tonight we are asking you to weigh in our unofficial Twitter poll. Do you think it's about time, or are you sad to see Tony Romo go? You can head to my Twitter page at Kaylee O'Kelly, and we will have the results later in this newscast.
Still ahead tonight, the trouble.
Now, your NTXHondaDealers.com sports desk.
I'm planning on Romo being the quarterback for the next 4 or 5 years. That's a fact.
Well, turns out instead of 4 or 5 more years, Jerry had Tony Romo as his starter only about 4 or 5 more months, injured in the 3rd preseason game last year. But it was a 14-year Cowboys career that didn't see Romo throw a pass until his 4th season with the team, a touchdown pass to Terrell Owens in 2006, the first of what would be a club record 248 TD passes. And then it ends on January 1st with 1 series in Philly. Jerry Jones employs his do-right rule, letting Romo become a free agent on the first day of the NFL's new business year tomorrow.
It is implied that we will work in the best way we can for the mutual interest of Tony and the Cowboys. We'll do the do-right rule. Now, we've got to abide by every league rule. We can't have agreements without it being within the boundaries of the NFL. When you've got a situation like we've got where we'll do the do-right rule, we have that kind of relationship.
Tony Romo finishes his Cowboys career as the most prolific passer in franchise history. More touchdown passes and passing yards than even Hall of Famers Roger Staubach and Troy Aikman. But he also only had 2 playoff wins.
I think that quarterback position is something special. I think you're the face of the franchise, and I think he's carried that very well. I really believe he carried this football team also. But I always felt like the team around Tony was not as good as Tony. If you had had 22 Tony Romos, not only would you have been in the Super Bowl, you would have been winning the Super Bowl. And I just felt like organizationally, they just didn't give Tony enough help throughout his career to get to that point.
And even before Romo exits tomorrow, the Cowboys had his potential replacement in for a visit today. 37-year-old veteran Josh McCown could wind up being Dak Prescott's backup. After signing wide receiver Bryce Butler today, the Cowboys have 18 unrestricted free agents, and it looks like they will lose another team captain, safety Barry Church, who reportedly has agreed to a 4-year, $24 million deal with Jacksonville. Big 12